Welcome to another episode of the Capital Gains Tax Solutions Podcast, also streamed on Expert CRE Secrets Podcast, where we believe most high net worth individuals and those who help them, they struggle with clarifying their capital gains tax deferral options. Not having a clear plan is the enemy, and using a proven tax referral strategy such as the Deferred Sales Trust is an amazing way for you to exit highly appreciated multifamily businesses, real estate, eliminate the need for the 1031 exchange, cryptocurrency, so you can defer millions of tax, and so you can help yourself create and preserve more wealth, or help your clients, friends, and family do the same. Hey, I'm your host, Brett Swarts. In each episode, I'm joined by some of the best real estate, financial, wealth, crypto, and leadership minds in the world, where they share their ideas, deal stories, and inspiration. Together, we can make complex tax deferral strategies simple and passive income plans achievable. I'm excited about our next guest. He's out the great state of Texas, and he's going to help us discover how to find off-market multifamily properties. He's a real estate investor, philanthropist, and former world record amputee who was born, raised in Indiana.
Attemptee.
Right. Woo, that is
I still have all my limbs. That has happened before.
Yeah. So he and so much more. Please welcome to the show with me, Sterling White. Sterling, it's the first time I read your bio and I butchered it, my man. I'm sorry about that. But how you doing?
Yes, I am feeling good because I've got all my limbs waking up this morning. That has happened before. It is hilarious and it's all good.
Yeah, well, I'm sorry about that, but I'm glad. Yeah, you're right. We should be grateful, right, for everything we do have, for the health that we have in this day and age. So let's not forget about that. But for our listeners, get to know you for the first time, would you give us a little bit more about our story and about your story and your current focus?
Yes. So born and raised in Indianapolis, Indiana, not so good parts of the city where you never knew if you were going to make it to the next day. And 5 years old, almost lost my life due to a stray bullet. And I was sitting at the kitchen table. Both my twin brother and I, we get up, go upstairs, and bullet comes right through the back patio where we were sitting. And single mother, welfare, food stamps. But luckily, Brett ended up getting out of that environment. And from that, how I got into real estate was I was a laborer. And that's when the light bulb really went out that I want to be in this industry. Not so much a laborer, because I came across the book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, which many people are familiar with that one. And started buying single families, no money out of pocket, bought 150, and then transitioned to multifamily, got up to about 500 units.
Incredible, amazing, persevering, and making it out of some tough starts. But imagine that built into you a grit and a mentality that you can overcome everything, which leads me to the next question. I believe we've all been given certain gifts, Sterling, and these gifts have been given to us to be a blessing and help to others. Some people call them strengths, some people call them superpowers. I'm curious, what are those one or two gifts that you believe you were given, and how does that help how you help and bless people today?
I'd say is the ability to one, figure things out. Is me, I know how to be at point A, and if I need to get to Z, I'll have a superpower or just a way to figure out to bridge that gap, whether I need to pick up the necessary skills, either or find someone to help me with that, and in return help them get to where they need to go. Secondly is that I've got this innate fire within me just due to the upbringing that I had, is that I had on a constant every other day basis. People tell me I wouldn't amount to anything. One of those people, unfortunately, being my mother. So I have that superpower within me, which could have easily been a double-edged sword. And some people could have took that as a victim mindset and used the excuse, but I decided to use it as fuel.
Excellent. So you've got the figure things out, A to Z, be the person, be the thing, do the thing, and then help people do that. And then number two, innate fire within to drive you to succeed. Love it. Let's use that now to talk about finding off-market multifamily. So Sterling, what's the number one secret to finding off-market multifamily properties?
I'd say the greatest secret is the follow-up, and the follow-up is the creative follow-up. And that's allowed me to be able to buy a 46 unit, 50 unit, to 80 units and 156 unit, actually all going direct to the owner. And it was through the follow-up. And it wasn't just simply picking up the phone and saying, hey, Brett, now are you interested in selling your property? No, I'm not interested in the property. A week later or 2 months later, now you're interested in selling your property. No, it's using ways on staying in touch, such as sending Rubik's cubes, or you can send a bottle of Tylenol that says, hey, looking to get this headache, this headache off your hands, with the Rubik's cube. Hey, with a small note, hey, let's figure this out. Or sending them contract. As an example, I followed up with the owner and someone drove their car into one of his buildings, and I sent them over a masonry contractor to help them with that. So it's just going above and beyond with the creative follow-up.
I love that. I love those little analogies. In fact, speaking of that, we've got a Rubik's Cube right here, and oftentimes, Sterling, what we talk about is we're not in the business of, helping people buy multifamily properties or sell our deals, or in the business of selling tax deferral. We're just in the business of solving problems. And to the extent we
Exactly.
can do that, we can help people get from A being maybe disheveled and colors on different sides if you're listening to this, and then the other Rubik's Cube being fully congruent and colors on all sides. And so talk to me, Sterling, what's your number one secret from helping people go from A to B to solve their problems?
So as an investor, it's identifying and investing in or you're saying more on the owner side. So as an owner is figuring out, okay, what is their motivation? Meaning is, do they just want to get out of the business? So that's one. Or is if they right now they're not ready to sell, but they are need some their parking lot needs some upgrades to it. So it's helping them one to solve that problem. And then that'll lead to, okay, well, I no longer want to own this property. I actually want out of it because this is just quite more of an undertaking than I thought it would be. So that is what it is solving those little problems. And then they'll realize, okay, this is a bigger problem, and I no longer want to deal with it.
So I'm hearing you right. You're building this trust and this rapport with them by helping them solve these little problems along the way. And then perhaps they say, you know what, Sterling, you've earned that trust. And now perhaps you can help me solve my bigger problem, which is exiting. Is that a fair summary?
Correct.
I like that masonry one. You said, hey, you sent over somebody to help them fix their thing, right? Like, I mean, was that just like you knew he was going to be there on a Saturday at 2 and you're like, hey, dude, just show up, and you showed up with them? Or walk us through how that all went down.
So this was a guy, he's in Chicago and he owns a property in Indianapolis and a market just outside of that. And he told me about someone driving into one of his buildings, and I knew it was brick because I had visited the property. And when I first got started in construction, my friend's dad's construction company, he was a masonry. So I already had that in the back of my Rolodex. And he said that, yeah, if you happen to have a masonry on hand that would be willing to work on this project, send them my way. And I said, I know the perfect guy. And then there we go. And he actually ended up using them.
Beautiful. So you used them and then solved this problem. You helped them out. Did that eventually lead to the ability for you to purchase the property? Or you're still working on that one?
Still working on it. It's going on 3.5, 4 years. So that's the other thing is patience.
Number 2 secret is patience. So talk about what helps you to have patience.
Gosh, and I really want to hit the patience home, especially the age that we're in, that most would say we're in the microwave age, where you've got the social media, where everyone believe everything happens overnight. A syndicator or someone posts a deal, they don't realize that, hey, it took all of this amount of sweat, sacrifice, and time and patience to get up to this. So that's one thing I want to indicate is that the setting the expectation that these things do take time. And if you have the patience, that allow you to separate yourself from others who may be trying to take shortcuts, which could end up costing them in the long run.
Okay. Got it. So we talked about intake. We talked about creative follow-up, right? We talked about patience. We talked about solving people's problems in a creative way as well. So it's not just creative follow-up, it's creative problem solving. What's the next secret that comes to mind here?
I'd say this so much isn't a secret, but the channel that I've used, or this is the secret I would say is just, it's not necessarily, but is I use databases such as a Reonomy or even a CoStar. And what I've always focused on is the owners that own less than 3 properties, because if you're going after someone who owns more than 3, it's likely that they're a larger corporation or they're still in acquisitions mode, and the likelihood of them selling to you would be not as likely because they rather just listen on the market and get a higher offer. So that's another thing I would say is a secret is if you're using these databases or just in your general criteria is only target owners who have, I'd say the sweet spot is just 2 properties or less.
I think that's so smart. It makes perfect sense, right? And maybe even focus on people who've owned it for 10 years or more, right? And on 3 properties or less. And the more you can focus like a laser on that ideal person you want to buy from, and that ideal avatar, if you will, the more you can serve them at a higher level, the more likely you're going to do deals. Is that a fair summary?
Yeah. And when it comes to the multifamily side, because I know it's different because you've got people who are doing single family where there's just more volume that comes with that. For a multifamily, and let's say you're targeting apartments between 50 to 160 units that have been built after 1970. There's only a finite of those. So within this is you're able to have the time to actually go above and beyond and invest more and take that sniper approach versus maybe with single family, you had to take the shotgun.
Amazing. I love it. We're talking with the Sterling White, and you can find him at sterlingwhiteofficial.com. That's sterlingwhiteofficial.com. Talking about finding off-market multifamily properties. He's out of Houston, Texas. Sterling, where are you buying these deals these days? What do you like? What do you like in Texas? What do you like in different states? You going back to India at all?
So I haven't bought anything over the past 1.5, 2 years, just where I've been selling. And it's been a great time to sell. And this is what I've learned from Warren Buffett is when others are greedy, it's the best time to be fearful. And right now we're in greedy times, in my personal opinion. So actually just have one apartment left, which is 156 unit, which is actually under contract to sell that. So is have my eyes open on the acquisition side, but not as heavily as I was several years ago.
Makes perfect sense. That's a great transition now for what people might be thinking about when they think about capital gains tax. So when you go to exit that 150 units, and you might have some capped gains tax. So what's your biggest frustration with capital gains tax and the 1031 exchange when it comes to exiting? And what are your plans for the exit for this property?
So on this is preferred to actually go the doing a, what do you call that? A 1031 exchange, but just the logistics and everything behind that and getting the investor buy-in, and it would be a new process. So that would be ideal to actually defer those taxes, but is to put them in what vehicle? It would be the interesting thing is to, I mean, where would you be able to park those in right now? So that is the big dilemma that we would face is one, setting it up for us to do a 1031. And then secondly, where to actually put that cash.
Yeah, we call it the shotgun wedding, Sterling, right? Our parents taught us to sell high and buy low, not taught us to sell high and buy higher 180 days later with a rising interest rate and cap rates that are still pretty similar to what they were even 60 days ago. Price is very high, and you're looking at still a seller's market in many ways. And then on top of that, some investors might not are ready to get out, right? They're ready to go their separate ways. So most syndicators that we work with, like yourself, they don't do 1031 exchanges, right? In fact, they just exit and just pay their tax, and they'll come back together. Now we have a cool thing called a Deferred Sales Trust. We just did it for a $48 million property in Vegas, where the two GPs exited into their own Deferred Sales Trust, and the LP did his too, and the rest of the investors just paid their tax as they normally would have. But that enables them to keep that 30 to 50% and that gain working for them, which they can turn around and put it back into their next syndication. So Sterling, having something like this that's not a 1031, that gives you that flexibility to go back into your own deals should you want to, an extra 30 to 50% to work with. What would that mean for someone like yourself who's selling 150 units right now?
I mean, that'd be a game changer. But my question is, Brett, is do you have to have that plan in mind on the front end, or could you do this towards the end and then what's the turnaround time? You have to get the buy-in, and what does that look like from the investors?
That's a great question. We call it a seamless partnership separation. So and unlike a 1031 exchange where the whole entity must move and everyone must be involved, this scenario, you don't have to have anyone involved. In fact, as the GP, which you probably are, you can just assign your interest, right? It doesn't affect anyone else. And so we just had a $13 million deal, for example, in San Diego, and there was 4 partners. One wanted to just pay the tax. The other 3 wanted to do a deferred sales trust. So we set up individual
GPs.
Yeah, and these guys were all GPs in this scenario, right? I think one would have been an LP because he's just kind of more passive. He was just a passive investor. But LPs can do it too. It can be GP or LPs. Anyone can do it. And because we're not under the 1031 rules of the whole entity must move, we're able to assign interest to these trusts. So it's very simple. So Sterling can start up the Houston DST trust as long as the buyer hasn't removed all contingencies and there's still some time left. We can simply insert the trust into the deal. And I imagine you probably own your GP in an LLC or a portion of that.
Correct. Mm-hmm.
And you can basically assign your interest to this trust in exchange for a promissory note. And that's the beauty of this, because you're changing the nature of ownership to a lender, and you're basically doing a seller carryback for the trust. The buyer gets everything he bargained for. He doesn't care. He's getting free and clear title. He's gone. The difference is your portion, let's say it's $1 million or $2 million bucks, goes to this trust, all the taxes deferred, and all of your other investors, you could just take their cash and can pay it, or they could set up their own DSTs as well. So the short answer is we do need to set it up before the buyer removes all contingencies. But as long as we takes a couple of days to set it up, of course you got to get to know us, like us, trust us, talk to our clients and all that stuff. But at the end of the day, like if it's an extra in your scenario, if you've done cost seg or depreciation, depending on what the property's at, it could be an extra 25 to 30 something % in deferral on the gain.
Yeah, this is very interesting. I had not heard of this concept. I'm only familiar with, hey, you got to get the buy-in or you got to do it on the front end. So thanks for explaining that to me. Learn something new every day.
Absolutely. By the way, anyone can go to capitalgainstaxsolutions.com. You can build your capital gains tax exit plan where we review 1031 exchanges, Delaware statutory trust, opportunity zones, deferred sales trust. So you can create and preserve more wealth. Check out our free mastermind. Check out the new book that's coming out. That being said, Sterling White, are you ready for the lightning round?
Yes, let's roll.
All right. Knowing what you know now, if you could go back to your 20-year-old self, what's the one golden nugget you'd make sure to tell yourself to do?
Man, I don't even know if he would listen, but I'd say is it's going to be okay. Keep your head down, keep putting in the work, and it's going to work. It's going to end up working itself out. So you're doing all the right things. Keep at it.
Amazing. Question number 2, what's the number one book you would recommend, you've recommended or gifted the most in the past year?
Shoe Dog by Phil Knight, co-founder of Nike.
Sweet. I love that. Question number 3, what are you most curious about right now?
Philosophy, stoicism.
Beautiful. Question number 4, number one leadership quote or theme that you strive to live by?
Understanding the things that I can control and the things that I can't control in life.
Beautiful. Second to last question. 3 years from now, you're looking back and you're like, you know what? This, and this happened. And I feel like that really moved, whatever the biggest thing you want to move in your life. What would that 1 or 2 things be looking back 3 years from now?
I'd say is I'm on this ever ending journey of raising my awareness. So I would just say is looking back at who I am now and saying, wow, I was not aware of, as example, the world works this way. And I wish I would have viewed it this way because this is actually how it actually is and not how I believed it should have been. So I would say an awareness standpoint. And then secondly is just having a better sense of who Sterling White is. That's another thing that I'm figuring out to this day.
Love it, Sterling White. Our last question is this. What's the number one habit that you practice to stay centered in your values and also stay encouraged to charge forward to reach even higher heights?
I'd say is mitigating my time on social media, and starting with is that or even access to media in general, is that I have a rule for myself that not checking anything, emails, no texts, no phone calls before 12.
Love it. Sterling White, I want to thank you for being on the show. You dropped a ton of knowledge for us. I want to encourage you to keep using your gifts or figuring things out to help yourself and your friends and family and partners and clients create and preserve more wealth, go from A to Z, and then taking that internal fire within you to drive you to feel yourself and feel others to succeed in life. For our listeners who want to get in touch with you, would you remind them one last time, what's the best place for them to find you?
Yeah, sterlingwhiteofficial.com. That is sterlingwhiteofficial.com.
Thank you, Sterling. Also, thank you, listeners, for listening to another episode of the Capital Gains Tax Solutions podcast. We don't take it lightly. You spend some time with us, whether it be once a day or every week or on our YouTube channel. We so appreciate everyone out there. And remember, if you don't have a plan, right, and you don't have someone to help guide you, perhaps you're not going to succeed in the things you're trying to do, whether that be finding off market properties, whether that be exiting, capital gains tax deferred in a way that can help you create and preserve more wealth. We want to help you by going to capitalgainstaxsolutions.com so you can check out the Deferred Sales Trust. Look out for the book that's dropping soon. We got Kevin Harrington from Shark Tank in the book. It's called Building a Tax Deferral Exit Strategy, all at capitalgainstaxsolutions.com. Thanks, everyone, for listening. Also, thank our listeners for the expert CRE secrets, everyone out there as well. We so appreciate